Hi, and welcome to Fairview Range Focus. I'm David Hall with Fairview. Today we are going to talk with Lisa Hesse, who is the Infection Prevention Coordinator for Fairview Range. We're going to talk about influenza and flu shots.
Yes.
So great. That's an important topic, especially this time of year.
Yes.
But let's start, Lisa, if you would. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what your position is at Fairview.
Well, currently I am Infection Prevention Coordinator, as you said. I've been at Fairview Range for about 5 years. I originally started out as a chemist and did that for about 20 years. And then I went back to school, worked in the medical lab, and got into infection prevention, which I found I just love, and I love my job, and I love what I do, trying to keep our patients safe.
All right, very good. A chemist, well, that sounds like a good kind of transition into infection.
Well, you know, there's a lot of science, obviously,
Yeah.
in chemistry, and so infection prevention is very science-based.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways it helps me if I'm reading studies or things like that, so very interesting.
Okay, excellent. So, influenza. Let's talk a little bit about that. So, exactly, what is influenza?
So influenza is a respiratory virus, and I think most people understand that. When you get influenza or the flu, you're going to probably get a bad headache, you're going to have a high fever, you're going to feel very tired, your body is going to ache, you'll have a dry cough. Basically, you know, I think of it as you have that hit by a bus feeling.
Okay.
You're going to feel pretty bad. You're going to be in bed for a couple days, might miss some work. That's typically the course that people see. Now this is different from, people will sometimes say the flu, but what they really mean is stomach flu. And that's an intestinal virus where people have nausea and vomiting and diarrhea. And then sometimes people confuse it with a cold, but a cold is similar symptoms to the flu, but it's much less severe.
Okay. So the influenza that we typically get shots for, though, is more about an upper respiratory
Is the upper
infection.
respiratory illness, you are correct.
Okay, good. Good distinction. But the term flu and influenza are synonymous or interchangeable?
They're pretty interchangeable, yes.
Okay. So is the flu serious? Most people can get over it pretty easily or within a few days, but
Yeah,
is it serious?
many people get over it quickly, but some people do get very ill. In a typical year in the United States, we see about 200,000 hospitalizations for flu, so that's pretty significant. And it's very hard to figure out the number of people that die from influenza, but depending on the severity of the flu season, we can see up to about 50,000 people dying from flu during a flu season if it's severe. Now, most of those people are elderly or they have other health conditions that make them more vulnerable. But we do see young, healthy people dying from the flu, and that's when it's particularly sad.
Wow, so it can be very serious.
It can be very serious even for people who are very young, very healthy.
Okay, all right. So are there treatments for flu if somebody does become infected and actually has the flu?
Mm-hmm. Most of the treatments are symptomatic. You're just going to be home and you're going to drink lots of fluids and do those kinds of things. We do have medications called antivirals. Those can help with the course of the flu somewhat. They can shorten the duration of it and the symptoms a little bit. We try not to give those to everyone. We try to reserve those for the people at highest risk because, like antibiotics, the virus can get resistant to the antivirals. And I'd just like to say too, antibiotics will not work for the flu. So if you have the flu, don't ask for those antibiotics.
Okay.
But the antivirals are the things that are against the flu because it's a virus.
Okay. So is there things we can do to prevent the flu? It sounds like it could be serious. Well, the best thing would be to avoid getting it altogether. Is there things we can do to prevent it?
Yeah. Well, certainly trying to be healthy, leading a healthy lifestyle, washing your hands, we're big on hand hygiene and infection prevention, not smoking, getting exercise, you know, all those things that we do to stay healthy can help. But really the best way to prevent the flu is to get the flu shot.
Okay. So who should get the flu shot?
The CDC recommends that everyone that's older than 6 months old get the flu shot. Now, we certainly want people that are older, younger, have health conditions to get it, but we really do want everyone to get the flu shot because my shot protects you, your shot protects me. It just keeps the amount of flu that's circulating in the community down.
Okay. Say that again. You said that my shot protects you. How does that work?
Well, what happens is you get that, people may have heard of herd immunity. So when we have a number of people that are vaccinated, that have had the shot for certain illnesses in a community, then I can't get it, and other people can't get it, and then perhaps if you can't get the flu shot, there just isn't as much flu circulating, so your chance of getting it is lower. So that's why when we talk about this herd immunity, when we have a lot of people getting the shot, a lot of people are protected, then fewer people will actually get the flu. We have less flu circulating.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep,
good.
sure does. So is there a particular time to get the shot, to get the flu shot? If I'm going to get it, is there a particular time to do that?
Well, we really recommend that you get the flu shot as soon as it comes out, and that's usually in the fall. And then because one of the reasons is because it takes your body about 2 weeks to develop immunity after you get the shot. So if you wait until flu is circulating and you see lots of people are sick, now you get your flu shot, there's still 2 weeks where you're unprotected. So we really want people to get it earlier rather than later.
Okay. And how long, so it takes 2 weeks for it to start to kick in. How long does it last once I've had the flu shot?
Well, your protection from that season's flu shot should last throughout the flu season. There actually is some evidence that for people older than 65, their immunity can wane towards the end of the flu season, but we still want them to get it earlier because if the flu season's early, then they're left unprotected. But generally, it will protect you during the whole flu season.
Okay. Now, if someone has the flu shot, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're not going to get the flu. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. You know, when we have other vaccines like the measles vaccine, that gives really good protection. It's protecting almost 100% of people that get that vaccine. With the flu shot, it's probably about 50 to 60% effective at preventing you from getting severely ill with the flu.
Okay.
So it's going to prevent that severe illness. And then even if you were to get the flu after the flu shot, your illness would probably be milder. And so you won't be as sick, you'll be less likely to get hospitalized and get really sick.
Okay, well that's great to know.
So, yeah.
Even if you do get it, it would be less severe.
It'll be less
Okay.
severe, yes.
Okay, great. So are there different types of flu shots?
There really are a number of kinds of flu shots. The one that we have at Fairview is predominantly, it's called the quadrivalent vaccine. It's a 4-component vaccine. There are trivalent vaccines too that have 3 components, and they're just a little bit different, but any of those are probably fine. We have a high dose. Now that has 4 times the amount. It's almost like getting 4 flu shots in a way, but has 4 times of the amount of material in it. That is for people that are older than 65. People that are older than 65 tend not to respond very well to the flu shot. So we give them this high dose vaccine, and that actually stimulates their immune response more, so they get more protection from it. And then there are egg-free varieties too, and there's some other varieties, but typically the quadrivalent and the high dose are the ones that we give out the most.
Okay. You mention eggs. That sounds like a strange thing to be talking about eggs in relation to flu shots. But
it is
can
strange.
you help us understand that?
Well, the vaccine itself, and I don't totally understand the whole science behind it, although I should look it up because it would be interesting. But as I understand it, they're still using eggs to incubate the virus and make the vaccine. And so there is some residual egg protein, I believe, in the flu shot, in the regular flu shot. For people that may have severe egg allergies, say you have an anaphylactic reaction, you just don't, maybe you just don't feel, it's not for the people that just don't feel good after they eat eggs, it's the people that are having life-threatening reactions after eggs. There is a concern that they could react to the regular flu vaccine. So there are egg-free varieties that people can get if they are severely allergic to eggs. Now, if someone does have one of those severe egg allergies, they should talk to their provider. We don't normally carry that vaccine, but we can order it. And then what that person will want to do is actually go to their provider and get the flu vaccine with their provider and then be watched just to make sure they don't have a reaction. Now, I have been reading about this and they are not seeing severe reactions, but we're just, it's one of those abundance of caution kinds of things. And I guess if I had a severe allergy, I would want to be very careful too. But that's the scoop, I guess, on eggs, but that is kind of a strange thing.
It's kind of interesting to think about that, but I mean, like you said, some people are allergic to eggs, so it's good to know there is a type of vaccination that's available that doesn't utilize eggs for incubation. Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that. So what about nasal vaccine? That's Seems like that's been talked about a lot in the last few years. Is that something that's available for anybody, or tell us about that?
Well, the nasal vaccine apparently did not work very well last year, so they are not recommending that people get it this year. And this is a big disappointment because I've had the nasal vaccine in the past. I've given it to my kids. It's nice because some people, and including me, don't really like being poked with a needle. It's not that big of a deal. But it was a nice alternative for people. But for some reason, it just didn't work very well last year, so they're not giving it out this year, and they don't really know why. I think we're going to have to study that more. So I'll be watching that closely, and maybe they'll figure that out. But for now, the nasal vaccine is not an option for people, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I think there was a lot of people that probably appreciated that, like you said, that don't really
exactly
enjoy getting poked.
I don't know many people that enjoy getting poked, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So, does the flu shot really work? Is it really worth it? I mean, to get poked, to endure that? I mean, do you think it really does work?
You know, I really think that it does. I've been getting the flu shot for a number of years. I haven't, and I would say knock on wood if I had something wood to knock on, but I haven't been really ill in a number of years. I know typically what happens is we'll talk to people and they'll say, oh, I never get sick, I never get the flu, I'm not getting the flu shot. And then they get the flu, and this just happened to a friend of my colleague, and they get really, really sick, and they're in bed for a while, and when they recover, they say, I'm getting my flu shot next year because I never want to be that sick again. So I really believe that it's good to get the flu shot. Like we said, those number of hospitalizations, you know, we see those people hospitalized. Sometimes they're on respirators. We have these people dying. There's, you know, stories of young, healthy teens just they get sick and die within 24 hours. It's just a very, very sad situation. So yes, I would really recommend that everyone get the flu shot.
Okay. So what kind of side effects might we expect with a flu shot, or are there side effects?
Well, most side effects are mild. Severe side effects to the flu vaccine are very, very rare. I know I got my flu shot about a month ago, and my arm was sore for, you know, in just the little spot where they put the shot, was sore for about 2 days. And that night when I went home after I had the shot, I'm like, you know what, I kind of want to sit on the couch tonight. Just didn't feel that good. What that means is that my body was developing immunity. My body was reacting to the shot that I got, and it was working to develop immunity to those flu strains that were in the flu shot. So that's a good thing. Sometimes people confuse that with actually getting sick, but it's not getting sick. It's just the reaction to the flu shot. I always think if I'm feeling kind of punky from something that's this dead virus particles that can't make me sick, how would I really feel if I got the flu and I got really sick? Because I've had the flu before, and it is miserable. It's totally miserable.
Okay. So how does it really work as far as the flu shot? So your body is exposed to those viruses when they inject them, but they're not live? And then your body develops an immunity? Or is
and a virus isn't really alive anyway, but the particles in there stimulate an immune response.
Okay.
So my body thinks that it's the flu virus. So my body is going to respond, it's going to develop antibodies, and then those antibodies are going to stay in my blood. So if it sees that same thing again, it's going to say, oh, I recognize this, I've done this before, I know how to handle this, and boom, it's going to quash it before it can make you sick. It's the same way that other vaccines work. We're exposed to these things that they're not going to make us sick, but now our body has time, that 2 weeks like we talked about, to develop an immune response. So now when it sees that again, it's going to quash it really quickly, and then we won't get sick, or we'll get just a mild illness.
Okay. So I hear talk each year about the flu shot coming out of the vaccination, and the fact that the recipe, it's a poor choice of words, but the mixture of what's used that varies, because the type of flu that is expected, is that accurate? I mean, it's a different injectable. It's each year depending upon what is being transmitted.
That's a really excellent point there, David. What happens is early in the year, they look overseas, like in Asia, and they look at what flu strains are circulating. And then they look at those and they say, okay, what are the top 4 strains that we're concerned about? They get for the quadrivalent, they pick 2 A strains and 2 B strains. And then they put those in the flu shot, and then it takes them, 6 months to create that flu shot. So what happens is over the year, some of those strains will mutate and they'll be a little bit different. So maybe the shot isn't, gonna match them or something. Or they'll be here this year, but they won't be there next year. Or we'll see this strain this year and a different strain next year. So usually what happens is they pick those strains in January, February, and they're a good match still by our flu season. But I think if people remember a couple of years ago, we had a flu shot that ended up not being very effective. And what happened is they picked that recipe, like you say, and then the strain that was really circulating changed. And so people got their flu shot, but the flu shot didn't really match what was circulating. So that does happen, but because it takes a while to develop the flu vaccine, we can't just snap our fingers and create it. So most years it's a good match, but some years we just pick wrong.
Okay,
that
makes sense. Thank you. But it seems like then, since it does vary from one year to the next, that it wouldn't be wise on my part, for example, to say, well, I had a flu shot last year, so I'm good. I had it last year, and so because it could be a whole different virus as well, as it wouldn't last that long. Is that right?
Exactly, exactly right. So two parts to what you said there is that the strains wouldn't be matching, so they would be different than they were last year.
Okay.
And then your immunity may have waned to such a point that your body is not really going to elicit very much of a response if you see a flu strain, and then you will get sick. So that's why one of the reasons why we recommend people get their flu shot every single year.
Every year,
yeah.
Okay. Now, and I know I've heard this mentioned before in the public, and you kind of touched on it, but maybe you can elaborate just a little bit, having to do with if I get the flu shot, I might get the flu. Or someone saying, I got the flu shot and I was sick afterwards. Can you touch on that again?
Well, what happens sometimes is that people get the flu shot and then they just feel crummy because their body is making a really strong response. And I've had that happen too, where I feel like, yeah, for a day or two I might have felt crummy. Didn't happen this year, but it's happened to me before. But again, that's not the flu. I'm not getting the flu from the flu shot. I also know, and she was an infection preventionist that I worked with, she got her flu shot, and before her 2 weeks was up, she got the flu and her whole family got the flu. And it's because they were exposed to it before their body really had a chance to get immunity.
Okay.
So that's where I really think that comes from, is people are getting the flu after the flu shot because they got their flu shot, but then they were exposed to the flu before they had the immunity, and then they got sick, and they're equating it with the flu shot when that's not really what is happening. Because as I said, it's impossible to get the flu from the shot because it's just pieces of the virus. It's not anything intact that can make you sick.
Well, that's a really important point. So
Yeah.
I want you to say that again. So you said it's impossible?
It's impossible to get the flu from the flu shot because it's inactive. It's just not going to happen.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
But also I heard you say, with regards to the time that you get the vaccination to build up immunity, there's several weeks there. It seems like it would make sense then to say, you know what, you need to get your shot early in the season. Don't wait until it's starting to really circulate. Would that be?
Exactly. Because what happens is all of a sudden oftentimes what will happen is all of a sudden we see a wave of flu come in. All of a sudden we have an influx of a bunch of people coming into the emergency room with influenza symptoms. Well, by that time it's going to be pretty late to get your flu shot, because pretty much you're going to have to get the shot and sequester yourself, put yourself in a closet or something for about 2 weeks, not touch anybody, not see anybody, to give your body time to get that immunity. And flu can start in the fall. It can be starting in October, November, December. Sometimes it doesn't come till February or March. It just really depends on the season. So get your flu shot early, and then you can just relax. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to rush in when you see everybody getting sick. It's just a done deal.
Right. All right. Good advice. So tell us, how safe is the flu shot? You've said you can't get the flu from it, but is there any other risks that we should think about?
As I said before, the side effects from the flu from the flu shot are generally very, very mild. Again, that sore arm, just feeling kind of punky. I have never really seen a truly, really severe case of a reaction from the flu shot. It does happen rarely, but it's very, very rare. What's much more common is that people get the flu and they get very, very sick and are hospitalized, or they're in bed, they're hospitalized, and then, like we said, some people do die from the flu.
Okay. So we mentioned about the egg allergies and the fact that if somebody does have that kind of allergy, there are vaccinations they can receive that is not eggs aren't used. Is there any other components within the vaccine that we should be concerned about or that someone could have allergies to?
Well, it's possible that there are other components in the flu that people would have allergies to. I think that's unlikely, but they should talk to their practitioner if they have unusual allergies. The components in the flu that people get most concerned about is we hear about mercury is one of them. And the flu shots that we have are single-dose syringes, so those are mercury-free. And they're also latex-free. So if people have latex allergies, they shouldn't have to worry about that too, but there isn't any mercury in those single-dose syringes. The other thing that people mention a lot of times is formaldehyde. And as we know, formaldehyde is, or many people know that formaldehyde it's a nasty chemical. And in large quantities, you don't want to be exposed to it. What many people don't know is that our bodies, as part of our living processes, make formaldehyde every single day, all the time. I know, isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
Wow. Okay.
And the quantities in our bodies, and even in a baby's body, even in a newborn baby's body, there is at least 10 times more formaldehyde circulating than you would ever get from a flu shot.
Normally circulating.
So normally circulating every day, 24/7, your body is making it, and your body knows how to handle those small amounts of that formaldehyde. I mean, that just sounds crazy. There's a saying, the dose makes the poison. I think we've heard about people that drink too much water and they get hyponatremia, they get a specific condition and they die from that. So water that we think of as innocuous and good for us, water can also be dangerous in high amounts. So certainly we want to avoid formaldehyde in high amounts, but the levels that are in the flu shot are nothing that our body can handle and nothing that our body doesn't handle on a daily basis.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So yeah, I have a whole talk about flu shots. I could talk about vaccines all day long.
Formaldehyde, I didn't
Isn't
know.
that,
No,
that
thank
is
you.
really
It's
interesting, isn't that? Yeah.
How about, I've heard some mention, and I only recently, about a universal flu shot. What is that?
So that would be a flu shot that would be, instead of being specific to certain strains, like we talked about the strains that are picked every year, and we have to pick those strains, and the flu shot is specific to those strains, the current flu shot. This universal vaccine would actually protect against all or almost all flu strains. And it would be a different kind of a vaccine targeting a different part of the virus. It's in development. I don't know a whole lot about it, but that would be great because if we had this universal vaccine, it would be probably like getting the measles vaccine or getting the tetanus vaccine. You'd only get it once, or you'd get it every 10 years or something like that. And then we wouldn't have to go through this yearly thing that we do right now of getting our flu vaccine. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that, and I think everybody would like that, and maybe
definitely.
it would be giving us, and in that case it would give us universal protection. So if we made a bad choice in the spring and picked the wrong, it wouldn't matter because we'd be protecting with that universal, we'd be protecting against everything.
Okay, but that's in development.
It's in development.
Okay.
I don't know how long it's going to be. You know how those things go. We think
Yes.
it's going to be next year, and
Right.
who knows how long it's going to be.
Right,
But
all right. We won't hold our breath for that. but,
exactly. Please don't
stay
hold your
tuned.
breath for that. Yes.
Stay tuned. All right. So somebody might be watching this and thinking, I really should get a flu shot. And learning some things about this. What do they do? How do they go about getting a flu shot?
Well, we'd really like you to come to the clinic.
Okay.
If you have a regular scheduled appointment, say you're in for your physical or you're coming in for some other reason for the clinic, you can just, at your regular appointment, your regular scheduled appointment, just ask your provider, say, I'd like to get my flu shot at the appointment, and you can do it right there. We can do it for you, and then it'll be done.
Okay.
If you don't have a regular scheduled appointment coming up, you can call our scheduling office and set up a flu vaccine only appointment. And we have these times set aside, and people just come in, you just get your flu shot. Please wear a short sleeve shirt, so it's easy to do that.
Easier, yep.
And I'll just give you your flu shot, and then you're on your way. You don't need to see your provider or make a regular appointment. So there's a
Okay.
couple ways. Now, you see that you can go to wherever in the community. There's lots of places that give them, but we hope people will come and then we have the quadrivalent too to offer. So that's a nice thing that we can offer for people.
So, but important thing I heard there is that I don't need a physician referral.
No,
to
you
go
don't
and get
need
a
a
flu shot.
physician referral.
Okay.
You don't need a special order. You can just come in at your regular appointment, come in, make that flu shot only appointment, and we'll take care of you.
Okay. So if somebody is listening today again, and we've shared a lot of information, but maybe has other questions, is there somewhere where they can go if they've got more questions they'd like to ask?
Well, one really great resource that we have in Minnesota is the Minnesota Department of Health website. So if you go on the internet and you search for the Minnesota Department of Health, you'll get their website. And then if you search specifically for the flu, there will be lots of information about the flu, flu shots, different kinds of flu shots. Lots of questions will be answered there. So that should really answer people's questions there. And then there's lots of other information on the Minnesota Department of Health website too, just about all kinds of health questions that people have a lot of times. So I refer people there a lot. They just have great information, and it's science-based information, so we don't need to worry about getting some of that sketchy information sometimes that we hear from rumors or misconceptions, things like that.
Yeah, good point. All right, Lisa, thank you so much. You're obviously very knowledgeable about the flu shot and influenza, so I really appreciate your time today, and hopefully those watching have become enlightened a little bit, and we'll go to the extra effort if you haven't had your flu shot to do that. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for asking. This has been a great experience, and I'm always happy to promote health in our community.
Good, good, excellent. Well, that's our show for this month. Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit more about influenza and flu shots. So if you haven't had your flu shot, I hope you'll take the initiative to do that and get that taken care of. So thanks for watching, and watch next month for another segment of Fairview Range Focus. Thanks for watching.
Hibbing Public Access Television would like to thank U.S. Bank for providing us with studio space.